are the 2032 Summer Olympics that are supposed to be hosted in Brisbane, Australia, on the verge of being moved because of their current stadium situation. Well, guys, we just got a massive proposal with new renderings for a potential new Center Olympic Stadium, a $6 billion project in total that would be fully privately funded. Now, the government came out earlier this year and said, no, we're not building a new main stadium for the Summer Olympics. And by the way, this is one of the main problems when it comes to some of these cities hosting the Summer Olympics. If you don't have the adequate amount of stadiums, you either have to build a brand new one or do some type of huge renovation to your existing one. And they have said that they're going to be possibly renovating one of the other stadiums that they already have in the city instead of building a new one. But you can see this recent proposal, really interesting looking, reminds me exactly of Howard Terminal, the renderings for the Oakland Athletics. You can see how it's almost like the city itself is incorporated into the stadium. Now, you could say it's a good thing, you could say it's a bad thing. Me personally, I would rather have an amazing exterior. I'm sure everyone remembers the Beijing Olympics with the bird's nest and just how amazing that exterior was. And this rendering, designed by HKS, is a very unique model that seemingly has, to me, the first time I looked at this, I thought it was a highway connected to the stadium, because that's what it looks like. I think those are pedestrian bridges, I want to say. I believe that's what that is. But they have housing, you can see, built in overlooking the stadium. And then there is also a big overhang going around like 3/4 of the stadium, or maybe like 4/5 of the stadium as well, with a bunch of greenery incorporated as well. The capacity would be around 60,000, and it would also include warm-up facilities and around a 2,500 apartment athletes village complex, along with a hotel and a hospitality zone. So this is a design right now that is being pitched privately. This stadium would open in 2031 and undoubtedly would be the crown jewel stadium of the games in Australia if this does end up happening. Now, based off of the field design, it does not look like this is going to be the main Olympic stadium, because there is no track and it looks a little bit too small for that in terms of the footprint where it's located, but certainly the most unique stadium if it does end up getting built for the Summer Olympic Games. And you can see the interior renderings. They do have many suites on both sides, and then above the right side there is the residential area along with some type of greenery like grass. And there are also trees that are going to supposedly be built into the stadium as well. So certainly a unique project. The total cost $6 billion. This would not be the only stadium for the games, as they would still need a bigger stadium for the track events and things like that. And they do plan on renovating a stadium for it. Actually, the original main stadium that they planned to rebuild was going to cost around $2.7 billion, but it got scrapped, and they said they wanted a cheaper games. It's very hard to go cheap when it comes to the Summer Olympics. You can get away with it when you're talking about the Winter Olympics, but there is a lot that needs to be built in the way of infrastructure and also stadiums and host locations for these games. So you would think a $6 billion private stadium, that would certainly help in terms of the costs fully being private, no tax money, things like that, considering apparently, at least the reports are saying, they do want the games to be on the lower side in terms of budget. Seems like kind of a disaster. Again, the Summer Olympics are not cheap. You either need a lot of venues or you need to build a lot of different stadiums. Just look at the 2028 Summer Olympics, the amount of venues that they'll be having: the LA Coliseum, SoFi Stadium, the Intuit Dome, Crypto.com Arena, even having some of the events in Oklahoma City as well. So this stadium could certainly help, and it was just released, at least the renderings were just released to the public. So we'll have to see if this ends up happening. If it does, it'll certainly be a sight to behold in terms of building this. And then one of the big things also in terms of the Olympics is being able to maintain a stadium like this after the games, because this is a 60,000 seat stadium. It's pretty big, but you can tell just by the look of it, it's very modern and very non-threatening. It's not like it's this huge, gigantic thing that's right in the middle of the city. It's almost just incorporated into the city, like it's almost underground to a degree. And I think that's done on purpose, because after the games, you're obviously not going to be getting rid of the stadium. It's still going to be there, but it just comes down to, are you able to maintain it? when it comes to the capacity of 60,000. Can you fill it up for maybe soccer games, maybe rugby matches, things like that, cricket? We will have to see. But the way they incorporate the water into the stadium is also pretty cool. Personally, when it comes to this design, again, we saw what they did with Howard Terminal, and it's very similar in terms of like the sloped hillside going up around the top of the stadium. This is kind of like that same building dynamic that they're trying to do here. But me personally, this would not be my first choice. It's definitely an abstract stadium, I will say that. Also, there has been a lot of criticism locally in Brisbane for even hosting these games. And we're seeing that increasingly with many cities. In fact, this was the only city to bid on hosting the 2032 Summer Olympics just because it's such a massive intake. So what I think is going to be happening when it comes to the Summer Olympics, they are all going to have to be in just huge cities, I would say. Like Paris, like LA, like maybe New York, although New York would be a mess. But I'm just saying, when it comes to the Summer Olympics, even the Winter Olympics are hard to do. They always go to exotic locations. That's why I always like the Winter Olympics, because they go random places. But nowadays, it's just becoming less and less popular. And locally, there is a ton of pushback on hosting these games. So maybe this stadium could help some people, considering it would be privately funded, but then you would also have this stadium and the footprint of it taking up a massive area when you already do have a bigger stadium that they originally planned to rebuild. Now apparently they're not going to be rebuilding it, but that's still going to be the main stadium. It just seems like this whole thing is kind of a mess, and it's just the way things are going when it comes to the Summer Olympics, even though they are obviously extremely popular and it gets amazing ratings and you can show off your city. But nowadays it just requires so much in the way of infrastructure, and the local people, especially if it's not like a crazy massive city to where they're used to the influx of people, a lot of the local people are going to get very angry, even on the outskirts of this city, if they end up hosting it, which, I mean, I'm sure they are going to be hosting it at this point. It's kind of really far in the planning process, but a lot of people are very angry. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.